Hi, folks, and welcome to Film Optimist, where we talk about all things film with a healthy dose of optimism. I'm your co host, Seth Boyd,
And I am Megan Tierney.
and today we have a treat for you folks. We have a movie made in America in English in the last 2 years with a Hollywood star. That's right, for this lovely season of Valentine's Day, we're talking about the Nicolas Cage vehicle Pig, which may not seem like a movie very fitting. I'll be honest, Megan and myself are not exactly a big fan of rom-coms or the usual fare, but this is actually truly a lovely movie about love, about grief, about a relationship, and it's about the love between humans, but it is also about the love between a human and their animal companions that frankly is a lot more beautiful than I think either of us expected. So this is going to be our quirky choice for the season. So Megan, before we start going into the synopsis, I'm going to ask you the question every man asks a woman at some point. What does Nicolas Cage mean to you?
Fabulous question, Seth. So for me, this may be indicative of my age, but a Nicolas Cage movie to me is National Treasure solely. So I know that he is this fantastic actor, and especially after watching this movie, my opinions of him have certainly changed, and I was very impressed. But yes, literally before this movie, my Nicolas Cage repertoire included National Treasure, which isn't a terrible movie in of itself. Oh, and also, I was a big fan of like SNL impersonations of Nicolas
Okay,
Cage, of
cool.
him being like this crazy,
Yeah,
larger than life character that is a bit of an over actor. So
right.
I'm coming at him from like a parody perspective almost, but I know that there's a lot of untapped potential in this actor that everybody has seen besides me. So I am really
Okay.
excited for your take on it, Seth, because
Cool.
I need to be educated over here.
Okay, I'm glad to hear it because are you aware? It sounds like you're kind of aware of, for lack of a better term, Nicolas Cage, how he exists as a meme, or at least on the internet. Like you said, that overacting is often in bad movies, is very entertaining in bad movies, and
It's true.
um, I am not a full Cage expert. I have
Cage
not
head.
seen everything. I'll be honest, it took me quite a while to come around. I think I have folks saying you got to watch these movies. They're so dumb and crazy. And
Hmm.
some of them are very fun, but it's like I'd rather watch a good movie.
I know it's a
And
little depressing.
it is, and I'll have a recommendation later. But like it was once I actually started seeing the movies that were truly good movies that he was good in, and it really clicked, and I
Hmm.
got it. And I now will occasionally be in the mood of I want to watch a Nicolas Cage movie. It doesn't have to be a good one; it can be a more wild one. And there's wild good ones. For folks who don't know, Nicolas Cage has had a bit of legal trouble. I believe it was unpaid taxes, and he's buying quite a lot of property. So there's this kind of time period that started, I think, around 2009, where he just started appearing in a bunch of movies that are shot very quickly, often overseas, that are often straight to video. So there's a whole plethora of bad Nicolas Cage movies you can watch that was kind of the stuff people were telling me to watch as he was coming up, that it kind of held me back from realizing, oh, he's a good actor in good movies. And
Well, this aspect was so interesting to me when you told me about it, Seth,
yeah,
because it just made a lot more sense that he was like contractually, legally obligated to do some of these things. And it changes the perspective of like a Nick Cage film then.
yeah, exactly. I mean, there's definitely some gems in there, and I think
Hmm.
this movie is indicative of other recent truly good Nicolas Cage
Right.
movies he's been in. But there are people who buy strange Nicolas Cage merchandise and will just watch anything he's in. And I think unfortunately there's maybe a concept of like, oh, he's so dumb in these movies, it's fun. It's like, no, he's good. He is
Yeah.
truly good.
Yeah. Well,
He
and he's
knows what he's
contractually
doing.
obligated for some of
Right.
them. So
Exactly.
it's pretty hard to be
Yeah.
against that, you know?
Well, going off that question and your perspective of it, when you first heard that there was a movie called Pig and
Hmm.
Nicolas Cage was in it, maybe you heard the premise or saw the trailer thing. What were you thinking this movie was going to be?
Right. I mean, I had heard buzz around it. The one-liner titles really are indicative of like horror films to me,
Yes,
and
that's really true.
and
Well, Lamb came
so
out this year too.
yep, yes, and old like all of them. It's
Right.
so it's well, it's that's just a trend in like movie titling nowadays, and especially if it's tied to a Nick Cage film, you almost think that I was going into it a little bit more like it's going to be a bit of a gore fest, a bit of a bit of
Yeah.
even a slasher or something like that. And I was surprised by what we found. I was surprised at the foodie movie that it is
Yes.
like a mini part of it, which was actually really beautifully done, I thought,
Absolutely.
and certainly made me like hungry for black truffles,
Oh my
which
God, yeah, no, this is
are
this
a
is a
big part of the
fantastic
movie.
food movie. Yeah, so I, knowing a little bit more about Nicolas Cage and his recent career, and knowing he's often in, I mean, it's been a thing since film has existed. If you try to cash in on a popular movie by making a worse, cheaper version of it, the premise and the trailer made me think this was going to be a John Wick knockoff.
Mm.
Which, if you're not familiar, John Wick is a hitman's dog is murdered, and he goes and finds and kills the
Oh.
people. And it's Keanu Reeves, and it's if you like action movies, it's pretty fun. So the premise of this movie, though, is Nicolas Cage is a truffle hunter, forger, who lives in rural Oregon with a pig, and his pig is stolen. And the trailer and the poster has a lot of Nicolas Cage covered in blood entering the seedy underbelly to find his pig back. And it really seemed like it was going to be, like you said, a gory action movie. And
Mhm.
oddly, it's not. But also, Nicolas Cage is covered in blood most of the movie.
That's
But it
right.
is he is not a violent person. He does not seek violence. He kind of reluctantly, or maybe not
Mhm.
reluctantly, he is willing to enter this world of violence, but he's not really subject anyone to it.
Mhm.
It's a very strange, much more poetic, much slower, more
Yeah.
beautiful movie than I expected. It's been compared to First Cow in terms of theme and kind of pace. If anyone saw that recently, also Oregon, beautiful, sad, peaceful movie. But all that to say, I think there's some brilliant marketing going on here. Of this movie really was leading, I think, most audience members to expect something else entirely.
Mhm.
So let's dig into the synopsis. So, like we said, Nicolas Cage is living in rural Oregon. He lives in a small cabin. He doesn't look like a character who bathes. He has very long hair. He is speaking to his pig often. I don't actually feel terrible. Does the pig have a name?
I don't think so.
I don't think the pig does have a name.
He only ever says, "I want my pig back,"
Yeah,
not
he
the
just keeps
name.
referring to, which sounds like a Harrison Ford line from a
Hmm.
I want my pig back.
He's a
But
man of limited words for
he is,
sure.
yeah, he barely speaks in this. But bottom line is he is forging, living this remote cabin, doesn't really appear to have electricity, and he is selling these truffles that the pig finds to one of our favorite actors, Alex Wolff, who great character intro. He's coming in his I think it's a Lamborghini. He's blasting
Yes.
classical music, which I don't know. Often classical music implies some sort of element of class, but this screams new rich.
Hmm.
Someone's trying to shout, "I'm fancy," you know.
It was some like odd classical music motivational speaking kind
That's
of
right.
like
Yeah, that's
tape, which was
yeah,
really funny in of itself. It was a great, well, obviously he's meant to be the foil of Nick Cage's
yeah,
character in every way, and man, does the movie. I mean, the movie pretty much relies on that duality, that relationship, but he's just the polar opposite, if you can imagine, of what
absolutely.
Seth described so beautifully, which was Cage's character in this.
And so he is coming by, I believe it's every week or so. He has cash with him, and he has batteries or whatever other
That's right.
things needed. And Nicolas Cage refuses to have a cell phone or anything else. You are wondering for quite a while how this arrangement was even made initially,
Yeah, that's true.
So we have a little bit of this, and then out of nowhere, the pig is stolen
Hmm.
by meth heads, and it just starts this descending journey into a very bizarre, seedy underbelly of the culinary Portland,
Hmm.
which I found it's not just that you see great food, you have really strange ritualistic things. And it comes out pretty quickly that Nicolas Cage's character, Rob, is actually a legend. He was a top chef who
Hmm.
owned a lot of the great restaurants. It was part of the scene, and it's not really clear why he left and became a recluse, but soon the only person he knows is Alex Wolff's character.
Right.
And soon they're descending into this world of madness together. They find a hidden wall that he knows exactly where it is, and you descend into this part of a building that no one knew was there before, and there's waitstaff fight club is happening.
That's right.
And
That's the best description of it you could give.
right, and it's an endurance contest of some sorts. And
Hmm.
this is again like you're really expecting you see people beating the absolute shit out of each other, and Nicolas
Right.
Cage is going there and he's trying to get somebody's attention and just takes these punches after punches, and he's already still messed up from being attacked when they took out the pig.
Hmm.
And you're really expecting this to go a different way, and it's jarring. I think even at this point, you're really expecting still the violence to kick in at some point. And folks, it never does on Nicolas Cage's, and he never fights back, but he's also relentless in tracking down who has his pig.
I think it was pretty telling that that was the first kind of scene. Well, one of the very early on scenes that they go to is this fight club
Mm-hmm.
where you're paying for to hit people and like punch people, very much underground, like in a hole in the wall, literally. That was just real. Well, like you said, it was jarring, but I think it set up the world beyond that, and I think they needed it sort of in the beginning of this journey so that they could
Right.
show the brutality, I guess, of the world that they're going into, which is like ironically enough the culinary world, the high end culinary world at that.
Yes, I should know actually. Two things I should have noted. Sorry, is we do see Nicolas Cage is asking for batteries because he has a tape he wants to play or a CD, a portable CD
Hmm.
player, and I think it says for Rob on it, and that comes in later. But also this movie is divided up in chapters that all are the name of a dish,
Oh yes.
and it's something truffle related for the first one, and also. Megan, I'm not sure how you feel about pigs as an animal. If it's always cute to you, pigs can be very cute to me, but
Hmm.
also
They're
my
very
understanding,
smart.
they're very smart. And my understanding
Hmm.
is a pig would if they could actually kill you and eat you. So um,
Interesting.
maybe not this one. I'm not sure about that, folks. I did not do the great in the science classes, so don't judge me on that one. But I feel a little better about eating an animal that I know would want to do that.
Mm.
but folks, this is a great pig actor, very
It
cute
really
and
is.
true bonding of
Hmm.
early in the movie where he's calling the pig enters the frame slowly, wildly. It's really cute.
It
It's really
is.
beautiful,
It is.
and you do very quickly feel the bond between this person and their pet, their
Oh yeah.
companion.
Well,
And
sorry to cut you off,
no,
Sam, but
go
that
ahead.
scene of them stealing the pig is really really crazy and
Hmm.
very very sentient. I think there was the pig squeals like obviously when it's getting stolen, but those
Right.
squeals became very human like to me, and
Yeah.
so it really made me think about that it's foreshadowing something of Nicolas Cage's past in the scene of it because it's so horrific, it's so traumatizing, and it literally sounds like a shrieking woman. So I can only, which the
Right.
movie doesn't necessarily reveal, I don't believe, ultimately, but it's really jarring in that way. So maybe it's
Yeah.
just to personify this pig a little bit more into like a more humanistic character,
Yeah.
but it was certainly there for me in that scene. I'd love to
Yeah,
hear your
that's a
take
great.
on it.
It was a very intense scene. Yeah, and
Hmm.
it's I think the most intense scene in the movie. And I should say, if folks have pet related in your animal abuse trauma, it might be a trigger.
True.
You don't it is largely in the dark and you don't really see an animal being actually brutalized anyways,
Yeah.
but yeah, you hear this really horrific screaming that is terrifying and soul crushing. And Megan, you are not currently a pet owner, is that correct?
Not currently, but we certainly
Okay.
do love our animals.
Yes, and I am a dog owner myself, and yeah,
Hmm.
this is definitely when you're hugging your cat, your dog, or whatever when you're
Hmm.
watching, you're keeping them close with you while you watch this movie. And I think being pet owners, past or present, is really going to lead towards how you feel about this movie, to be honest.
Sounds
So,
good.
the relationship between Nicolas Cage and Alex Wolff characters is pretty hostile at first. Of Nicolas Cage correctly says, "You need me. You're selling these truffles for thousands of dollars.
Hmm.
I know I have the best truffles. I know you're making money off me. You can find somebody else if you want.
Hmm.
Good luck. You're not going to make as much money." So it's a very reluctant and kind of at odds relationship, especially Nicolas Cage is never really explaining why he wants to go where he's going or what he's
Hmm.
playing on. He's very closed off. And
Bit of a hostage situation, but
yeah, it is a hostile for sure. Yes.
but he's in the right, and I think Alex's character knows that. Like
Right.
his name is Amir, I believe. Yeah,
Amir, yes.
Amir knows it. Like he knows that this is his his golden goose, like for lack of a better term.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of fun to see the him grovel with that and like know that this is his cash cow. Like this is for more animal references. This is his cash cow. This is like his ticket to his lifestyle, which we do get to see in the Lamborghini and the classical music, and it is also very, very nice.
Portland apartment,
Portland apartment, lakeside apartment, and
yeah,
so that's really cool. That's kind of
was
fun
the
to
reason
see.
I didn't move to Portland. I looked at those prices.
All right.
Yeah.
Stunning imagery as well, like
Oh
throughout the
yes,
whole
yeah,
thing. So that's really fun.
absolutely. Yes, and especially Nicolas Cage becomes even increasingly sympathetic, enigmatic as this goes on because he's keeps having this strange request of, take me here, whatever. And slowly, it is not made clear to Emir initially that he is royalty. He is culinary royalty in this town, and this largely comes to head. Maybe one of my favorite scenes in the movie is that Nicolas Cage demands that Alex Wolff, they go to a particular restaurant. It's called Eurydice.
Yes.
Plenty to say about it being called Eurydice. Someone who can't give up on their lost love. But
oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm trying to remember exactly why. It's not too important to this purposes, but Nicolas Cage is aware that that's where he needs to go next to get somebody's attention. He's basically trying to track down this kind of head honcho of the culinary world who would know where the pig is. And we're going to spoil this now because we're going to talk about it. It ultimately ends up being Amir's father, actually. And this is not known to Amir at first. I think it is actually known to Rob, Nicolas Cage's character. And I think that's part of the reason they're not revealing everything. But Nicolas Cage, I think, puts this together fast about like, yeah, you're trying to set out on your own. You really can't do it because his dad is kind of this kingpin, almost this Tony Soprano of the culinary, the high-end culinary scene in Portland. And very little happens without his knowledge. And so they're going to this restaurant that for Alex Wolff is like, this is not in my territory. I don't sell here. I enjoy going to high cuisine. I think it's been like a trend for quite a while in mediocre comedies to make fun of how pretentious it all is. But if you've had a good meal in those places, it's great. That being said, I've had some pretentious dishes that were not as good as they should be.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, just certainly not as like high priced as they should be.
Yes, absolutely. Smaller or whatever.
I think they may be making fun of that aspect. It's like, how could you be so pretentious about like the presentation of it all to justify those crazy prices? Yeah.
So like this scene of places overly pretentious really works for me, and everything is deconstructed and it's a foam and everything's within a 30-mile radius or something, which that's cool. Actually, I really like that. I mean,
I know that's true.
Is that, but the chef, it did look good, and the chef is someone who Nicolas Cage knows, and I had to look up this actor because I thought
he looked very
recognized
familiar.
him, and I don't think he has any other credits.
He was so broad to me. He almost reminded me of like an SNL character or maybe like a B-roll guy or something, but I don't know for sure.
So the actor is David Kinnell, Knell. I might be saying that wrong. Kinnell, I don't know, but not a whole lot of credits. He's in Pig.
He's a star.
He's good in Pig.
I think that was my favorite scene too, Seth. I can't wait to talk about it with you.
You know what? I'm mistaken, folks. He does have more credits on IMDb. He just doesn't have a Wikipedia page. So you got to experience my shame live. This is mostly TV stuff, though. Not that makes him any less of an actor. All that to say is this person was maybe not as familiar as I thought he was, but he certainly has a great presence, and Chef Derek. Nicolas Cage demands to see him. Nicolas Cage is still covered in blood at this point. Still looks absolutely awful.
Will not clean up at all.
Yeah, which is like, was that distressing for you, Megan? Because that was very distressing.
Well, it was hilarious to see him in the restaurant like that. I loved that. And then he has multiple opportunities for like cleaning himself up and like a shower even, and it's just no. It's a no for him.
Yeah, I mean, like he is at Alex Wolff's, as we've described, lovely apartment and refuses to clean up, to change. Yeah, so and I also felt distress in Alex Wolff's part of how do people look at you if you're walking around with a guy who's got,
props to his character for like kind of, I mean, he batted an eye obviously in the beginning,
Right,
but he had to stick through it. So that's
right.
even another funny element of it
No,
of
that's true.
itself.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
As we're going back to the chef, the table just kind of churned, and it's still I should say, for me at least, on first viewing, everything Nicolas Cage did was unclear to me what his motivations were
Yes.
until the end of the movie,
I
and
agree.
what he was planning. And he talks to the chef, and after the chef gives his whole spiel about deconstructed foam, whatever truffles are involved, says like, yeah, like used to work from there, fired you. And reminds him like, why are you doing working here? You hate this. I know what you wanted to do. You wanted to run a traditional British pub.
Hmm.
And this guy almost like looks like he's going to start bursting crying, but he's also, his head is kind of shaking, and he's trying to keep up a professional smile. And it's a
Yes.
great intense reaction that I think if Nicolas Cage was covered in blood and was looking at me, it might be a reaction, you know?
Robin's character just obliterated his whole life right
Yeah.
before him, and it's so funny to watch as he just gets he's told about his life like in and after, almost as if he's not living it, like he's told
Yeah.
about what could have been. And oh
Yes.
my god, that scene is truly amazing for
Yeah, that
me,
was
one
kind
of
of
the
a
top
Twilight
highlights.
Zone
Yes.
moment for him. I think that's that you mentioned it. Like, yeah, this is. No, but I love that scene. I love that actor, and of course, Alex Wolff is trying to act as
Hmm.
normal as one can while watching all this unfold. Is I think going on some of his journeys of being shocked, but also really doesn't want to be seen here.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
it's a terrific acting all around in this movie. But we should back up and say, at one point, Alex Wolff has told Nicolas Cage about the one meal his parents went out that they actually had a good time at. They
Hmm.
they normally came home still fighting. They were fighting all the time, but when they came home from a dinner once, and it was absolutely delicious. They talked about it in detail, and they loved it. And it slowly becomes clear to the audience that Rob made that meal, and Rob was this
Yes.
head chef who made that. And Rob is confirmed through Derek, I believe, that Amir's father is in possession of the pig or arranged it, and it's Adam Arkin who's playing that character of Darius. So now we have like more strange scenes of more odd tasks that Nicolas Cage is giving to Alex Wolff, and it becomes clear basically after a failed attempt of trying to reason with him, his ultimate plan. Then this in any other movie, this is we're gathering up the material because I'm going to break into his house if I'm gathering weapons or I'm gathering men. But this is he's sending Alex Wolff to get a particular baguette, to get some particular bottles of wine,
Hmm.
a particular chicken, and he's recreating the meal that he served him.
That's right.
And when the father reluctantly eats it, he just bursts into tears because he remembers the meal. And it's a very strange scene, but for me, it was very effective. I actually did feel like I was emotionally connecting with that scene.
I think we're on the brink of, is this man going to be violent throughout this whole
Oh
journey?
yes,
And
yeah,
then that he approaches it with, I'm going to make him a meal that drives him to tears,
yeah.
in like in such an emotionality. That was really pretty well done for me too. And I was almost thinking he poisoned the food, because I think they set you up to think of this guy as a violent man, or like you
Yes.
just assume that he is in this world of violence, he must be a part of it as well. And then I just like, now that you're talking about it too, Seth, that he approached it with like, I'm gonna make you a meal is
Mm-hmm.
very, it's such an interesting like tactic that they used in it, which I think is like a big defining theme of the movie in itself, is subverting a lot of assumptions about who this man is, which
Absolutely,
is a
yeah.
big part of it.
And there's a moment much earlier in the movie where Nicolas Cage, I think it actually might be in the moment with Derek, where he says, "I remember every meal I've ever made and every customer I've ever
Hmm.
served, and they don't
That's
give a
right.
shit about you. They do not know who you are. They don't remember." Which I don't think I could handle the restaurant industry. I'd be
Yeah,
very curious actually to talk to somebody who has been in there long form and
it's
how they
true.
feel about this film. So I think it actually really did catch this villain character Darius off guard, that was the meal, that
Yeah.
he might have just seen it and been kind of confused, but then he tastes the wine that's paired with it and everything, and is instantly brought back to tears. And
Hmm.
it's right after this that he finally confesses he doesn't actually have the pig. The meth heads who stole the pig did a shitty job, and unfortunately the pig died shortly after it was stolen,
Hmm.
which is crazy. He didn't tell him that earlier. As far
I
as I'm
know.
concerned, could have saved trouble. But then you just have Nicolas Cage just dropping to the floor, screaming and crying. There is no real catharsis, except, maybe there is in knowing,
Sure.
what has happened, but it is not the happy ending. But you do have this huge release of passion that is a man screaming and crying like a Greek tragedy, and it's wonderful and it's very powerful
Hmm.
and very emotional.
Emotional passion at that. I was gonna
Hmm.
say, and then amongst these men of high caliber was kind
Yeah,
of fun to see,
yeah,
powerful to
and,
see.
and it's hinted at throughout this that we're not exactly sure what has happened, but that Nicolas Cage's own wife has died unexpectedly. I think it's maybe implied it was in the hospital, of long-term disease or something, but
Hmm.
she has passed, and he was happily married once, and we can connect the dots that he
That's
has
right.
become a complete recluse since then.
This is the tape that he was trying to play
Yes.
earlier. Is implied that it's from his wife, and we can hear her voice, and it sounds like he plays it a lot, and
Mhm.
and is reminiscing basically through the tape. And sometimes it's so painful he can't even get through the listening of the tape. So
Yeah,
it's a pretty fresh wound for him, I believe.
absolutely. Yeah, it's there's a favorite musician of mine is Nick Cave of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and he a few years ago had a tragedy. His 15-year-old son died in an accident,
Wow.
and he said, "Time is elastic. You keep moving further and further away from this moment, and then when you least expect it, you're snapped right back to that moment."
Ah,
When he
so
found out this
good.
person's gone, and out of that expression, and I think this movie understands that, or at least
Hmm.
understands grief in a profound way that a lot of movies that present grief maybe don't. It really felt like a very passionate thing. This is made by a new filmmaker. This is their debut film,
So nice.
Michael Sonorsky,
Hmm.
and I'm very excited to see what they do next. But not much is known about this person, at least not much that I could find as yet. But it's impossible for us not to project onto the artists. Either they're just a very intelligent storyteller, or they have a. I would put my money that this is their way of processing a
Oh,
grief
sure.
of their own.
What
But
a
yeah, this
great
is.
debut film. Like
Oh my God!
congrats,
Right?
congrats
Yeah,
to him.
absolutely. Very excited to see what they're doing in their future. But
Yeah. Hmm.
a real another kind of kicker at the end of the movie. After this is already found out, and Alex, by the way, Alex Wolf's character, is putting together more and more that he is having a very complicated relationship with his father. His
Yeah.
father's this violent temper, and he becomes kind
Hmm.
of more aware of it. And
And
there,
self-conflicting. He kind of idolizes him, but but it's pretty quickly dismantled throughout the movie, which is fun to watch as
it
well.
is, and one of my favorite notes on that is he stops listening to classical music, and his father's listening to classical music. So it kind of seems everything
Yeah.
he's doing is to impress his dad, which is clearly not working.
Hmm.
This whole situation ends without conflict of Nicolas Cage and Alex Wolff leave the father's house without having gained anything, without having lost anything more. There's
Hmm.
no additional violence. They're just going separate ways. And Nicolas Cage confesses to Alex Wolff, like, I don't actually need the pig to find the truffles.
Hmm.
Um, he can just do that. It's something about how you look at where the trees are, the moss or
Uh,
something. And Alex Wolff was like, well, what the fuck? Why do we go through all this? Like, you cost so many the money. He's like, I just love my pig.
that's right.
And I
Hmm.
love that. And
Yeah. Yeah. Because
yeah,
Alex Wolf, what's his name? Amir's character wouldn't
yeah,
really, it's like a final lesson for him. He wouldn't really understand doing that for a relationship in his life, or for a loving relationship in his life, because he doesn't really have that, I don't think. And
right.
so maybe in a way it's also, I mean, I think it's, there's very, very subtle, like, agreements, I think, between Amir and Robin by the end of it,
Hmm.
and pretty sincere ones. Like, I think that it was a gesture of kind of like, I see you, and I get it. Like, I understand. And even from Amir's part, I think it was a bigger journey for him, almost, because he really needed to be broken out of his shell of this corporate
Right.
chef life. Not really corporate, but like
Yeah.
this high-end chef world that he lives in, and is his own little bubble. I think it's certainly burst by the end of it, and it's thanks to this journey that he's been on with this weird
Right.
guy.
No, absolutely. And I do think you're right. I think there is this kind of somewhat anti-capitalist message in there. Like, you do not
Hmm.
need to make the most money and be the top of this scene. And take that from the guy who was.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. And I don't know if you necessarily get much of a feel of what exactly Amir's going to do next, but like they are going to continue this. He still is gathering mushrooms,
yeah,
or sorry,
truffles.
truffles. I should confess, by the way, I don't like truffles. um,
I, have you had
have you
like
had them?
little shavings of
I've had
them?
little shavings of them. It seems like a thing I would like. I love mushrooms. I
Yes,
like earthy wines. I don't know if I haven't had good enough ones, but apparently, much like with some folks, just don't like cilantro, and that's a gene thing. Apparently, it
sure.
can be a gene that you just don't like truffles, which is like, well, I don't want to pay like
Oh,
$1,200 to find out I don't like truffles.
well,
Even if
I've
the
had it.
shavings I've had like at a restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't even had like I would say full shavings. I've just had
right.
maybe even that it's like a powder or like infused into something. But
Yeah.
I had a black truffle gnocchi one time.
Ooh, that sounds good.
That was the best
It's it's
truffle dish
always
I've had.
it's always a thing that gives me pause because they're so often like a dish I see all the time is black truffle risotto with
Yeah.
scallops. I love
Mm,
risotto. I love scallops.
mm,
And I think I just need to give it a try and see if I would like this. Because I've had like truffle cheeses that were not for me. They're too,
sure.
it almost reads as a gasoline flavor.
Yeah,
So
it needs to be very sparingly
yeah,
amounted, which is what personally I can afford.
yes.
So like
I
that
will
sounds
give it a
great.
try because truffles look delicious throughout this whole movie.
That dish I mentioned is from Shadowbrook in
Oh,
Santa
yeah.
Cruz. If anybody
I
has been
gotta
there, I highly, highly recommend. Very,
I
very good.
that's a place I plan on going when I'm back
Hmm.
in California.
Such a good food
Yeah.
movie, though. It really
Yeah, no, it is a great food movie. This
made you
is
crave something.
yeah, I mean, we might put out a list around Thanksgiving, but I think it's kind of fun to watch food movies. This is, I think, a top 5 food movie for me.
We should note that the scene of making the dinner was actually done with Amir helping him
That's right.
the whole
Yeah.
process along. So that was
Yeah.
for sure symbolic of like a turning point for Amir. And I don't know if it was necessarily to just as a way to speak to his father to have him actually be heard because he's a part of this meal that literally moves his father to tears. I mean, I think that that has to be
No,
something to do with
absolutely.
it. But I thought it was a
Um,
really nice touch, and it was a very like grasshopper moment, like grasshopper learning moment, and I liked it.
yes.
I did like it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was just hold on. I'm sure there's recipes for it because people are talking about it.
The dish from the movie, you mean?
Yeah,
I believe it was it duck that he made?
it was definitely a bird. I can't remember if it was something smaller like pheasant.
Oh, yeah, maybe you're right, Seth.
Yeah, because it's in the chapters. That's right. Because
Oh,
each chapter is named after. So I remember it was like the first chapter is rustic mushroom tart, and that's what he's
mm,
making.
mm-hmm.
Then it's mom's French toast. Simple roast pigeon. That was it.
Pigeon.
Simple roast pigeon.
Simple roast
Yeah.
pigeon, folks.
Right. Okay.
We
We
were on
found
a
the
spree.
answer.
Yeah, we were on a spree.
Okay. um, thank you for your patience, Megan, and audience. So
No,
it's
it
been a
had to
while.
be found, Seth,
It did, right?
and
And yeah,
you did it.
this is a movie that is going to make you, I think, want to go find Simple Roast Pigeon
Mm.
shortly after viewing.
It looked
But
amazing. That was a good scene.
yeah, that was great. And by the end of the movie, they're doing this still. You know, Amir is still picking up the truffles from Nicolas Cage. I thought that was interesting that he does not want to come back into it. You know, he's
Hmm.
kind of experienced the culinary world, saying it is exactly what it was. You
Oh.
know,
Hmm.
still, and I think you get the impression that Darius was maybe underhandedly in charge still back in Nicolas Cage's day
Yeah,
of
sure.
as a top chef, and like
Sure.
now he's still picking truffles and is still going to sell them to Amir. So a surprisingly simple movie, and I don't know, this hit me really hard as we're all still going through the pandemic, folks, and sometimes something this well crafted that deals with grief,
Yeah.
even though like I didn't lose a pet, you know, I
Hmm.
think we are still experiencing collective ongoing trauma. So a movie like this really just knocked me knocked me
Oh, yeah,
out,
I
you know,
know.
emotionally, and it's great, and I think it is cathartic, and it was moving, and it's truly beautiful, and so unlike the movie I expected it to be
For sure.
of Nicolas Cage, because murderous rampage to get back his
I was gonna
pig.
say, well, coming from National Treasure, this was
Yeah.
this was quite the step away from me. And what a like I also just thought it was like very experimentational in terms of
Hmm.
portraying emotionality. I think that's probably if I were to try and go into the filmmaker's head, I think that would have been his goal for this. And if it is, that he succeeded, and I'm interested in how he'll copy that later on. But it is really interesting to create these subversive places, and these characters into these subversive places. That's always like I mean, that's a classic movie theme, and it's always going to work. But this was still, even though that's a classic theme, I think that this was still pretty original, which is really hard to
Absolutely.
do. So
Yeah.
so props where props are given.
I'm a big fan of thing, entity, organization, or like occupational world that seems to be pretty straightforward is actually has a criminal underbelly. um
Yes,
that's
yes.
which I have heard. I worked at a wine and cheese shop, and apparently people who've been there longer would talk about the cheese underground, the cheese black market. Apparently that is a thing because
Oh
things are
yeah.
often not legal in America, and they're legal again. So there certainly is something to
Hmm.
this, and like there's sea dishes that you can in California that are closely regulated if you can't actually wear diving equipment to go get it. So
For
you
sure.
can, I think it is abalone actually. So you can only supposed to only bring back a certain amount at a time,
Oh
but
yeah.
there's a lot of illegal operations around that, and so that's something I think we're all are somewhat aware of. If you
Hmm.
aren't, you're welcome, I suppose. But seeing a movie dive this much into it, of it being, it's not just a few folks trying to steal a pig. They're selling that pig to like the mafioso who is
Mafia.
somehow involved in every restaurant in Portland.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I do enjoy the idea that everything is like this. Actually, I don't take
I
comfort
mean,
in it, but it's a fascinating idea to me of there being this underbelly and these shadow folk running
oh, it
every
has to
aspect of our
be.
life. Yeah,
And the food industry is specifically, I should say, the restaurant industry is a
right.
has to be billion-dollar
Yes.
industry. I mean, maybe $1 million industry, but certainly
Yeah.
with the like upcharge of prices that we see,
Oh
and
yeah.
then that, like we said about the restaurant scene, or the pretentious restaurant scene earlier, that's they can operate that way because of their like upcharging. And not to say that their quality of ingredients aren't a thing, but it's also like it does kind of show then the labor that goes into it, and it could even be a symbol of like the poor farmer, poor in the sense of like monetary poor farmer that
Hmm.
is getting these things for us, and then even down to the animal, the pig that searches for them in the first place, or that we eat in the first place. So there's a
Yeah,
lot
that's
of like
certainly true.
layers. I like that it's layered in that way, and it shows every it shows every denomination of this chain to the restaurant, of this like pipeline to get to the snuffy stupid restaurant.
I could certainly see someone turning to, or at least contemplating vegetarianism after
Yeah,
watching this film, because,
it's
and
true.
I think that's something I like about it. The movie commentates on it a lot, but you don't have any characters commenting on the fact that we are looking for a animal bred to eat, you know.
Yes.
And
You know,
here we are in the culinary world, and this man loves his animal.
that's right. I didn't even watch it, so here's me talking out of my ass. But like, there was that movie called Okja, which I think, and
Ocha,
it was,
yeah, yeah,
from what I gather, I think it has similar themes about these animals that we take for granted, but it's
right.
definitely about just recognizing
We
their
should watch that.
existence.
That's
I know, recognizing
Bong
their.
Joon Ho, the guy who did Parasite.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
correct. I think it's on Netflix, but
yeah.
I assume that a theme of it is like recognizing that just the source of where your meat literally comes from, and
Right.
that's a big theme of it.
No, absolutely. I think that's like among the reasons I don't frankly feel the need to become vegan or anything. It's like I am grateful to be in a position where I can eat meat more ethically. And occasionally I'm buying something from like Costco or whatever, but I am usually able to like get a red meat from like a market where I'm aware where the butcher is.
Sure. Hmm.
Not everyone can do that, and even if you have the
Absolutely.
funds, not everywhere is in a position
Hmm.
logistically where you can easily do that. So that's a thing that I think a lot of folks take for granted. I certainly did.
Sure.
In summary, great food movie, great
Hmm.
cathartic movie about grief. Great, very understated Nicolas Cage. I don't think he ever really,
Yes.
I'm part of the reason why that scream of grief at the end is so powerful is he never really speaks above a muttered word,
Sure.
the rest of the whole movie. I think
Hmm.
he has a few neutral, but this is not Face Off or something like that, where he is ranting and raving the whole movie.
It's true. It even cuts out of sound, so
Yeah, that's true too.
we're seeing it in silence and letting his acting do the talking. And I mean, I agree. He did very, very well in this, I thought.
Yeah,
And when you have such limited dialogue and when you are a mysterious character the way he is, I think he portrayed it pretty very well. And it's not
yeah,
just like he's thrown into something that I think a lot of people say like, oh well, he's just doing like his Nick Cage thing.
right,
And I think you can't say that for this movie. I don't think that he is typically this recluse farmer man. So I
right.
that's where I thought he did shine from what I
Yeah,
saw.
and I think for folks who fall into Nicolas Cage, we've had a few movies that people said, "Oh, this is finally a return to form for him." And
Mm,
I'll be honest, I think the last like two didn't really do it for me. People said Mandy was a really good, true Nicolas Cage performance, and I can't really articulate why that movie just didn't connect with me.
sure,
I didn't think
sure.
he was bad in it, but
Just not for you,
it just
maybe.
didn't do it for me.
Yeah.
And the other was Color Out of Space, which is often a crazy Nicolas Cage movie that's
Oh,
fun, but the movie also for whatever reason didn't work for me. So I was very happy to see by my standards at least like now this is truly a good movie. And
good,
this is so opposite of those two things where he's going very big.
good,
um,
good.
well, I think we both have a recommendation based off the two lead actors.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm going to do a Nicolas Cage recommendation. Do you want to start, Megan?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've talked a lot about Nick Cage's performance in this, but the other, basically his counterpart of this whole movie is Amir's character, who's played by Alex Wolff, who is, I'm sure a lot of people know, he's becoming kind of a indie darling a little bit. But
Absolutely.
certainly for me, he's really stepped up the game, and I have seen him in a lot of movies even recently. He takes very I'll give him the credit that I think that he takes very interesting roles. He certainly doesn't want to be like a leading man or like a, I should say, like a romanticized character in any way. I mean, he's basically an asshole in this. So it's a testament to him just wanting to pick like interesting roles, I think. But what kicked it off for me was seeing him in one of the best horror movies of our defining generation and this new wave of horror, which I think is definitely a thing, is Ari Aster's debut film Hereditary, which is, it's so crazy to me that
Mhm.
that's his debut film. But
Absolutely.
he is pretty remarkable in that to me. And even like Seth and I have seen Old, which we kind of want to talk about it a little later
I
on, a
think we
little
will,
like
yeah.
little hint hint wink wink. But he was really, I thought, with how literally ridiculous that movie is, he was very entertaining and really sold it to me a little bit better than another actor in that role. So, I really admire him, and I'm excited to see the roles that he does choose, because he picks these very interesting ones, not mainstream, not very like I said, leading actor trying to be kind of guy. He's not, he doesn't put on airs, in other words, and I think he's doing
Right.
a very good job at what he is trying to do, which is just be a good, interesting actor.
Right. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think like Old is maybe the biggest movie he's been in terms of I imagine a much bigger budget than
Hmm.
Hereditary and a known director.
Yeah, yeah,
If M. Night Shyamalan and Hereditary is fantastic, folks. If you haven't seen it, you have to watch it. But
yes,
I think Pig was the first movie he did after that. So like even doing like going back to what you were saying, Megan, about him having these great acting choices, in a bigger movie, but
hmm,
still a very interesting role,
yeah,
and still an interesting,
that's it,
strange movie, than doing something so small like Pig, which is
exactly.
a director's first film. I think this, very small budget, and you have Nicolas Cage in it, but this is a small movie all by all accounts.
It's
um,
true.
so I'm very excited. I agree with you. I'm very excited. I will say actually one thing I'm worried about with this director, Michael Srensky, is he's going to be doing A Quiet Place Part 3. I have not seen the Quiet Place series, but I'm always kind of worried when a director does something this good and then it goes immediately to a paycheck. That can work out really well. That can work out great. I'm just hoping we get a original screenplay and film from them again soon.
I did not
Um,
know about A Quiet
yeah,
Place
that might
Part
be good.
3.
Yeah, it might be
Interesting.
great, but
Well,
I'm
what happened to
optimistic.
John Krasinski? That's his whole baby. Like, it's weird to me
Yeah, well,
that
I don't think
he
I'm
would
not sure if
pass
he
it
was involved
along.
in part two either. I don't know though.
Oh
Yeah,
my. That's interesting. I saw
yeah.
both. I saw both.
Okay,
And
were they good?
I like the first one better. People were
Okay.
really like raving about the second one, that
Hmm.
it was like just the same, but actually for me, it was a bit of a peg down. But I mean I liked him enough. I like the
Yeah.
first one better, like I said.
I mean, we both like horror movies, so maybe this
Yeah,
guy doing a horror movie is gonna be fucking great. Maybe we're gonna
that's true.
absolutely
Hmm.
love it.
It's interesting because Quiet Place Part 2 felt it's more sci-fi, obviously. It's not quite like a
Hmm.
horror that I'm
Okay.
interested in, but it comes off a little bit more sci-fi thriller than horror. So I will be
Yeah.
interested to see that. I did not know about that. And
Um,
your recommendation, Seth,
yes,
please.
I'm going to recommend a Nicolas Cage movie. This
Yes.
is, I think, maybe Nicolas Cage has worked with many of my favorite directors. He's worked with Martin Scorsese, David
Mhm.
Lynch, and the Coen brothers, but he's in a movie by maybe my favorite director. It kind of changes by within the top three, but he was in Werner Herzog's Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans. And
Wow.
this is an absolute unhinged Nicolas Cage as the dirtiest, strangest cop um, in New Orleans shortly after Katrina. There's
Oh.
a great quote from him at a screening for this movie that it gives you the vibe of it. He said, "I'm sick of people telling me I'm going over the top. There's no top of human emotion."
Wow. Okay.
And so he kind of takes this movie kind of goes to 11 across the board. If you're not familiar with Werner Herzog, he's a Bavarian director who's now made over 70 films of feature films and documentaries. I love this guy. He's crazy. He does some very interesting things, a very unique presence, very indie movies of very singular vision. And I was just really starting to get into film when I watched this. And I hadn't seen other Herzog movies, but I knew enough to know this is crazy that these two guys are working together, this auteur German director and this Hollywood star. And it's a very strange story that doesn't really go the way you'd expect. You're not really sure what Nicolas Cage is after. He's a cocaine addict. He's a degenerate gambler. He is also trying to keep his father happy, maybe too much. Things are not going great for him in the force. He's also the best cop of the force. And depending on how you feel about police enforcement, this might be a movie you enjoy. It's not exactly flattering Our Boys in Blue rah 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 movie.
Hmm.
Highly recommended if you want to see a generally good vehicle for Nicolas Cage to go full crazy Nicolas Cage. This is
Full
a good
Cage.
director who, exactly, it would not be correct to say Werner Herzog reins him in because he doesn't, but it's a good vehicle for him to go and let loose in.
I wish that there was a SNL when Andy Samberg impersonated. He did a great impersonation
Oh
of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nick Cage, but he used to say something like, "I'm gonna go full like National Treasure on their ass" or something like that. I probably am misquoting that, but that's the
Nice.
vibe that like
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
getting from it.
I mean, maybe if you want to see like a more like Hollywood, it's a genre, it's a Hong Kong director, but he did a
Hmm.
Hollywood movie with Nicolas Cage and John Travolta called Face Off, where they
Oh,
are you familiar with this at all?
the name sounds familiar, but
Okay,
I don't
so
know. I don't know much about it.
Nicolas Cage is the terrorist and John Travolta is the cop, and they literally exchange faces at one point and are after each other.
Oh,
So for most of
okay.
the movie, Nicolas Cage is doing a John Travolta impression and vice
Wow.
versa.
Okay.
So it is full crazy Nicolas Cage,
Mhm.
big budget explosions. So
Oh my
um,
God, that sounds amazing.
sorry, folks, you're getting two recommendations. That's a kind of more Hollywood. It's a wild, crazy, zany movie that is pretty fun.
Oh my God.
But
Well, those two
Bad Lieutenant's going
actors.
to be a little more morally challenging.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Well, those two actors are kind of in the same vein a lot of the
I think
times.
so. Yeah.
So that is very interesting. Wow. On my list, on my watch list immediately.
I'm sure this is not going to be the last time we cover a Nicolas Cage movie.
I know.
Folks, one last piece of business we want to address too is we record these a little bit before they come out. So who knows when this
Mhm.
will drop, probably in a couple of weeks. But the Oscar nominations were just announced today for 2022.
Yes.
And so plenty to talk about there. We won't go to everything now, but the main question for you, Megan, do you think Nicolas Cage was snubbed for not being nominated in this one?
Well, I saw the Best Picture nominations, which I was actually pretty surprised by myself, which we can talk about a little bit. I don't know
Sure, we should.
too many of them, but I certainly would hope that Pig would get nominated for something.
Mhm.
Especially even like original screenplay, if that was up for grabs. I you told me, Seth, that it got nothing. Am I correct? Like
Correct.
that is always disappointing to see. Certainly for us, it's disappointing to see that this truly is such a small movie. Like you can feel that in when
Right.
you watch it, and it has its merits. And it's like especially as an original screenplay, which I think it is. It's very. I think it would warrant that award for me personally. I know you said, Seth, that people are upset, particularly that Nick Cage wasn't nominated, which
Yeah,
I fully understand. It may just be that, like, he doesn't have much lines in this scene, and
that's true.
that may be a part of it. For me, I think what shined in this movie a little more was just the screenplay in general.
Hmm.
But so it is a little disappointing that the movie itself wasn't nominated, and I personally think that it's because of how low budget it is, which is a notorious problem for the Oscars historically. So I always would root for the underdog if I do see it.
Right.
So that's kind of my like feelings about it.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct. Of it's expensive, to my knowledge, to have a Oscars campaign. You are not
Uh,
just nominated; it's a process. And
oh, it's political as all get out. I'm
yeah,
sure.
I remember years ago, David Lynch, I think, partially protesting how strange the process was
Yeah.
on a street corner with a cow and a sign that said "Vote nominate Laura Dern" because she had just been in Inland Empire for his movie. So someone who'd already been
Nice.
quite around for a long time doing a very strange lynching PR stunt to bring
Yeah.
attention to, like, here's my advertising campaign
Sure.
to
Sure.
get
Sure.
my actor nominated. And
Yeah.
but I think it is like certain magazines you have to pay big money to be featured in. But on the note of Best Picture, do you have one you are hopeful for, Megan?
Yeah, well, I unfortunately the only one that I did get to see this year was Dune,
Mm,
which is unfortunate. I know at least like majority of them, which
right.
is exciting. I know that you saw Power of the Dog, Seth, so I'm kind of
Yes,
interested in your like take on that. But
I really
um
liked it. Yeah.
okay, good. Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't think that Dune is going to win it because, again, it's one of those like genre things. I do think that in the past, horror has not been won for anything.
Right.
Typically, Parasite was a big like change for that. It's not necessarily horror, but it's
Right.
in that vein. And then sci-fi. I don't think many sci-fi things make it to the top. They make it to the Best Picture nominations. So it's nice that it's in there. I'm kind of excited to see how it does. And then, of course, I know that West Side Story is in there as well, and any Spielberg movie that I think that it's just going to get nominated. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of like he doesn't have to do a lot, just be Spielberg basically, and that's not to snub the movie at all. It's just like it's fucking Spielberg, you know. So that's like those are
Yeah.
only my takes on it. I'm just interested. I'm interested to see what goes for it.
Did you hear? Apparently, I'm blanking on her name, but Steven Spielberg's daughter is working on a movie that should be coming out soon. But in all her interviews, she's, for whatever reason, trying to act like she didn't get this movie made because she's Steven Spielberg's daughter.
Yes, yes.
And it's
Oh,
like, why don't you not just lean into that? Like,
I
you're
think
like,
I
no
did
one's
hear
gonna
that.
believe you
I
for getting
know.
this based on merit. Like, no matter how good it is,
It's true.
you do
That's
not
hard.
work toward.
That's
So,
hard. But yes, I think
yeah,
I did hear that, and it's like
yeah.
okay, well,
I have not seen every movie from last year that I would like to yet. I'm excited to see Drive My Car is nominated. I haven't seen that yet, but that is a Chinese film, and it's always exciting that there is a foreign picture nominated for
yes,
Best Picture, especially since that actually happened with Parasite and
I
it
know.
winning. I will tell you though, from what I've seen, I'm really hoping for Nightmare Alley to win
Good. I'm
Best
glad.
Picture. I love that. I thought that was great, and I think it's a old story on that is, I think, very relevant today too, about texturism, really, and how and the
Wow.
lies we tell each other and how eager people are to pay for lies. And I think it has a lot more to say about where our culture is right now than just
Hmm.
the straightforward, very intense and harrowing story. But I think it has a
Interesting.
lot to say about where America's at right now.
Ooh.
I think my biggest snub to me, though, as much as I wanted Nicolas Cage to be nominated, I was disappointed that Tragic Macbeth didn't get more
Ah,
nominations.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was fantastic, and Denzel's nominated, so happy to see that. But I imagine I will have more words to say about that in our next one, folks. We're going to be doing a top films from 2021 episode
That's
uh,
right.
coming up pretty shortly after this. So we're going to dive into a little bit more of that.
Hmm. I'm excited.
Okay, folks, well, that concludes this episode. I just want to note we are now on Twitter and Instagram, so feel free to follow us there. We hate to do this, but we do love it if you like and subscribe. So I've now said it. Now I want to wash my mouth out, but that's where we are. Episode 6.
Mm,
Had to do it.
yep. It's contractual. It's not.
It is,
We don't have
exactly.
any contracts, but for
You know,
ourselves.
exactly. All right, folks, thank you so much for listening, and we're looking forward to coming back with our top films for 2021.
We've been film optimists.
Take care.